Hi there, I'm David Batsoffen and I host a travel blog called Travel and Things. During the month of November, we've been talking marine photography with Don Hunter. And unfortunately, this is our last episode because November only has 4 Saturdays. Don, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks, David. And you?
All right, thank you. Last week when we finished up with Bob the Turtle, which is a rather apt name for a turtle, I do believe. But let's pick up with your images once again, and let's look at what we're going to enjoy for the last episode of your In Conversation With. Ooh.
All right, so the
Yeah.
next little section is another genre of underwater photography, which is macro photography, where we're trying to get very, very close and take pictures of little things. And this is getting towards that end. This is something that's about half the size of the palm of your hand. So it's not tiny, but it is kind of small. And it is a leaf fish. So it's one of the rhinoceros species. And
this is an amazing.
Is very well camouflaged. It flops around like a leaf in the breeze. As the water surges back and forth, it just flops around in this lovely camouflage. And it's sitting against a nice fan coral. And that takes us into the very small. Now, this little fellow is about the size of your fingernail. And he is a Seawhip goby, or a whip coral goby. And you get these lovely long whips, which might be anything from 0.5 meter to 2 meters long. It's a single strand that is attached to the rock somewhere, and it waves around in the water. And quite often on it, you will find 1 or 2 of these little fellows. And it's quite challenging to.
I was going to say,
like
how close were you to this little fellow?
Probably about 10 centimeters. Very close.
Its eye is spectacular.
So as you can see, he is the same color as the coral. So to help his camouflage. And the problem is that when you approach, they hide on the other side. So you have to put your hand around and chase him back to the right side, and then chase him up to the top or the bottom to corner him. It's quite a process to take the image.
But it's well worth it. I mean, he's a glue. It's like this little fellow. He looks like he had a bad hair day.
Yes, exactly. So he's a blinny.
Yeah.
They're little things that they're about the size of half of your little finger. And they live in little holes in the reef. And they're as cute as hell. But you only see that if you take a photo of it, because they're too small. And you have to stake out his hole for some time before he comes out. And this particular one's got a real Disney sort of face to him with his lip.
He does indeed. Just as a matter of interest, Don, if you've got to do this sort of thing, sort of hang out around holes, is there no way of putting camera traps, underwater camera traps, that you could leave and then come back to at a later stage and see what sort of swam past?
Yes, you can. And the guys are doing it.
Okay.
There's a massive risk attached to this, because leaving your very, very expensive camera kit unattended, where there's lots of things that can go wrong, often ends in tears.
All right.
I have never done it, but people do it. They put it on a tripod and weight it down. There's that lovely YouTube video of this guy. He's got this lovely contraption, and he's got weights in it, And I can't remember if it's lead weights or rocks that he's put in to weigh it down. And then he comes back to it and the thing's fallen over and the rocks are missing. So he puts it back together and he comes back a bit early with his other camera and he finds an octopus taking the rocks out and putting them back on the reef until his camera falls over.
My teacher, the octopus.
Yes. And now we're going to the smaller and the small, and this is the nudibranch.
These are so cute. They really and truly are, and they are beyond colorful.
So this little thing is the size of your thumbnail, and yes. So here I am at minimum focus of about 7 centimeters from my port, and there's hardly enough space to get the light around the front of your camera. It's quite difficult. And the big challenge here, is to get in the right place. This is the front of it. So this is the front end is here.
Right.
That's its gills. And they're so named nudibranchs as naked gills. So those are its exposed gills, the naked gills. And it's coming towards me at the great pace of about 2 centimeters an hour. So they don't run away, at least, but you've got to try and position yourself in the current and the surge and not bash on the rocks, and it's still quite challenging to take them.
And at what depth is this, Don?
I can't remember the exact depth, but it would have been around 18 to 20, somewhere around there.
Okay.
They occur over a great depth from 5 meters to 100 meters. You get different species in the different depths, and they change. There are thousands of them. In South Africa alone, there's more than 3,000 have been identified.
Wow.
And they are finding new ones every week. So I do dive quite a lot with one of the guys, Brian Selleck, who's busy documenting the nudibranchs of Aliwal Shoal, and typically the last dive I did with him a couple of weeks ago, he found 4 new ones in one day.
Good grief! And then, if you find a new species, are you able to name it after yourself?
Well, it's I don't know the full process, but it's quite complicated because you've got to take a specimen, you've got to preserve it, you've got to detail where you found it and all the conditions and what it was eating and all of that. And then they send it off to, he sends them off to some professor in America, and they do a DNA test, and then they check to see whether they found one before and so on. And there's a whole process of naming it. But if you're finding enough, you will get a couple named after you in the end.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Apologies for the noise of the aircraft.
Incredibly colorful little creatures.
They are indeed. And what do they eat? Because it doesn't look like it has eyes or mouth parts, unless the mouth parts are underneath.
No, there's a mouth underneath. It's algae. It's an algae.
Okay. Okay.
And this is again a macro shot of a pufferfish. It's a female. You can see the big distended belly. She's pregnant, and she's looking at herself in the reflection of my dome port. And what you get with macro is that there's very little water column between you and the subject, so there's very little distortion from the water and bits and pieces in the water, and you can see this lovely texture of her scales. Just makes for quite a nice image.
It's a stunning. She's got very nice teeth.
Yes. And this is a Moorish idol. And again, it's taken in the daytime. But what I did was I whacked my aperture down to f/22, and leave the ISO at quite high, probably 100, 150, somewhere around there. And then I use the strobes to light up what is otherwise dark.
Yeah.
And this particular fish has got black in it, so the black disappears, but it's got this white and yellow and orange. And
They are
quite
beautiful
image.
fish. They really and truly are.
But I thought it was a slightly different image to what you normally see of them.
Not quite the
And then
zebra fish of the sea.
Our next genre of underwater images, which is wreck diving. So there's the Lust for Rust Brigade, who seek out
I've
these,
never heard them described as
junk
that.
sites. Yeah, there's a group of them that call themselves that. And now, before I started taking photos or images, I avoided these things like the plague, because to me they were just dump sites. I don't want to see junk in the sea. I want to see a pristine coral reef. But now that I've started taking images, now I've changed my mind, and they do lend an amazing backdrop. So this is a wreck. It's called the Cooper's Light Wreck, which is just south of Durban. It sits in about 27, 28 meters of water on the sand. It was obviously scuttled. There's no reef or anything for it to have hit nearby. But nobody knows the name of the ship. It's never been identified. It's one of the very few intact wrecks that they've recovered all sorts of portholes and the telegraph from it. The telegraph being the device that the captain pushes to say full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And it sends a signal down to the engine room, and the guys shovel coal into the boiler and build up a head of steam and make it go full steam ahead. And then he changes his mind and says full steam astern, and they got to undo it all and stop it and break it and make it go the other way.
I think they just got peeved with the captain and decided, to hell with this, we're just going to sink the ship. Let him find his own way back to port.
So they recovered this telegraph some years ago, and they cleaned it up and donated to the Durban Underwater Club, where it's now a pride of place in the new clubhouse, mounted on a pedestal. And they discovered in the cleaning of it that it has a serial number on it. So they made some inquiries, and lo and behold, the company that makes the telegraphs is, after 150 something years, is still operating.
Wow.
So a month ago, they've sent off a request to say, well, here's the serial number. What ship was it on? And we haven't heard back yet. So we're waiting with bated breath.
Now,
just
before you go on, Don, I want to ask you, if people are diving on wrecks, they're not allowed to strip these things willy-nilly. I'm sure people do take souvenirs, but at the end of the day, you want to leave something, you want to leave it as it is. You don't want to strip it down to bare bones just because somebody wants a porthole to hang on their study wall.
All right. I'm not being somebody who has taken anything. I haven't investigated this. But I know what you can do is you can get a permit for salvage. And I have no idea how it works, or it's complicated, and some stuff belongs to the state, and something it's very complicated. I don't know how it works.
Bottom line is,
but yes,
if you're uncertain,
if you
don't
discover a wreck, you can get a permit to salvage, and you're allowed to salvage it.
Okay.
Obviously, people like me would prefer that you left it alone, because they do break down quite quickly anyway. And it doesn't help to add to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the Cooper's Light Wreck, which lies in about just under 30 meters of water. It's 74 meters long. And here's a day where in Durban, where you can see the back of the ship from midships, is quite something spectacular. So it was an awesome day with the most amazing 35-meter plus visibility.
Wow.
And we were able to take images like this. So this is the stern of the ship. The propellers hiding down here. There's a diver swimming around the back there. Incredible clarity. And that's the, sorry, that's the aft of the ship, and there's the bow.
Yeah. Wow, it's incredible,
And
you know, as you say, you don't want them down there, but then when you see images like this, you realize how spectacular what a spectacular
yes,
backdrop they make to
yes.
marine images.
And they do make homes for a lot of fish.
Mm.
You know, they are, a reef is always at a premium for fish. And an artificial reef like a wreck is just spectacular. And this
It's
is
like a gated community.
Yes, yeah, I guess so. And these are mostly goldies, and they're very colorful.
Hundreds.
And then
there has to be at least one seal.
animals. Yes, various animals. So this was taken at the little seal colony at Plettenberg Bay, where you've got to be a little bit careful for the white sharks that are coming to eat them, and they travel up and down the Robberg there. But in between the passes of the great whites, you can get images like this, where this has got to be about the most fun that you can have in the water. If anybody has any inclination of getting in the water with a snorkel and some fins and having an absolutely stunningly incredible sea experience, is get down to one of the seal snorkeling operations and go snorkeling with these little puppies. It's like being in a box with 100 puppies. The adults don't particularly come near you and don't interact much with you. But the little puppies come and play with you. They zoom around you, they look at you from upside down, from backwards, forwards. They'll play with a bit of kelp. They will come and pull your fin or your snorkel on occasion, and they are just the most delightful little creatures. And there's no biting going on. It's just pure fun.
That is so, and of course, you had to do this, didn't you?
Well, yeah, of course, because it is a popular genre at the moment, is what's called black water photography, where you go out at night with your little torch and you look for something in the water, which will look at you back as surprised as you are, and you can take a photograph of it. So this is a squid taken in Papua New Guinea, this one, but it's the same squid that occur here in South Africa, which is what I'm about to do in 2 days' time here in Cape St. Francis, is to dive on the squid.
Okay.
So we are currently in the month of the closed season for squid fishing, when the squid lay their eggs, and I'm here to dive on the squid beds to take images, of which I hope to show you one in a minute, where these lovely red egg ribbons are deposited in their millions by the squid, and the rays, the big round ribbon rays and box rays, not box rays, forgotten the name, come and try and eat them as they're laying the eggs. The females go into the egg bed so they can't see, and it's the only time that the rays can actually catch them. So they come in hot like a bomber airplane, and they land on the egg bed with great gusto, and then they can feel the females underneath, and then they reposition themselves to be able to bite it. And
Okay.
it's quite spectacular. And then there's all the other sharks and stuff down there. It's quite an spectacular experience. And the water's green. The colors are very different. And then, of course, no set of images would be complete without the little anemones, little clownfish. This is the one-bar clownfishes hiding in a tube anemone, a magnificent tube anemone.
So we found Nemo.
And then, of course, the old manta ray. Yes, Nemo. So yeah, again, spectacular to photograph these monsters of the sea. You know, they can get up to 6 meters, 7 meters across. They're enormous things, and they fly through the water. They don't swim, they fly. Wow. And incredibly graceful, majestic animals. And then, of course, there's people. I like to take images of people. This is a nice young lady who's swimming through a channel and coming through the sweepers, which are hiding in the channel there.
Just to prove that there is somebody else down there with you. Oh, here we go. Another one of your
splits. This is a split. A split, yeah. So this is a place called Hidden Bay at Raja Ampat in Papua New Guinea, West Papua. And it is seawater, but these are archer fish.
Ah, okay.
Which are also freshwater fish. And I guess that I didn't in the water, but there was salt in the water. But what these guys do, their eyes are situated on the top of the head there, and they swim around shooting a little jet of water at insects that are on the vegetation, the land vegetation above the water. And they knock the little grasshoppers and things off the branches into the water so that they can eat them. So here's a group of people sitting here and feeding them. They're throwing fruit to them, and they're coming and and playing around. Just a nice image. So David, that was my selection.
Don, thank you so much. Can we go back to full screen?
We can indeed.
There we go. That has been the most fun I've had without getting wet these last 4 weeks, watching your images. It has made me keen, but not that keen to come down and say, you know, take me underwater. But as we've said in a previous episode, I can't find a housing for a 400 f2.8. So until that happens, I'm not coming down. I want to be far away from the action. For people who have enjoyed this series as much as I have, if you want to find out more about Don, look him up on Facebook, Don Hunter, or Don Hunter Durban will find him. Don, thank you so much for joining me during November. Your imagery is spectacular. It truly is. And I look forward to chatting to you again in the new year as you move forward with new aspects of marine photography.
You're welcome, David. Thanks for having me.
Take care. All the very best.